Why did William win the Battle of Hastings? There's several things that you could talk about. But what the key thing that you've got to do, if you're going to do well in history, is you've got to use an explanation connective. One of my favourites is to use this meant that. So whatever evidence you give, you follow it with this meant that, and you explain why this might have caused William to end up being the victor, the person who won in 1066. So, just a few samples. There's a lot of other things as well, but just to get you going. One thing I'd probably write about is the fact that Harold Godwinson and his Anglo-Saxon army had already just fought a battle at Stamford Bridge, all the way up near York. Hastings is on the south coast. Stamford Bridge is above York, which is even further higher than Harrogate, further north than Harrogate, and he'd had to march all the way down. These battles were within 3 weeks of each other. So if you're Harold Godwinson and his men, you've marched all the way from the south to north, fought a battle, and you know what happens in battles, even for the winners, people get injured, people get hurt, and then they've got to march all the way back down south. This meant that. Now you've got to kind of fill in the gap there. Why might that have caused Harold Godwinson to lose the Battle of Hastings and William to win? Second thing which you could potentially write about in your assessment is William had in his army not just foot soldiers, so your ordinary troops, but he also had archers and he had cavalry. Cavalry is a soldier that's on horseback. So this gave William a different army to the army that Harold Godwinson had. He only had just foot soldiers. He had some good foot soldiers called the Huscarls or Housecarls. They were the fiercest warriors of the Anglo-Saxon army. And he also had a number of peasants which were forced to fight in times of war in return for the land that they got to farm. But he didn't have archers, or if he did, he only had a tiny amount. And he didn't have any men who fought on horseback. So you got to think, why does that give William an advantage having different types of troops? So you put that evidence and then you put this meant that, and you explain how would this have helped William to win the Battle of Hastings. A further one you might write about is Harold Godwinson was at the top of this Senlac Hill with all his men. William was at the bottom of Senlac Hill, which is a disadvantage. Running uphill is more difficult than running downhill. It's the same with fighting. And actually, the horses that he did have, the cavalry, weren't particularly useful charging up a hill because the charge would be very slow. So what William needed to do is get his men from the top, get Harold's men from the top, should I say, and somehow get them to the bottom of the hill where his cavalry could wipe them out. And what William did, he saw something happen. He saw some of his men, just a few, at one section of the battlefield, and you got to remember there's thousands of people all fighting. It's very confused, very scary place. And some men on one side ran down the hill. And what the Saxons did in that part of the battlefield, they ran down the hill after them. When they got to the bottom of the hill, the cavalry, the Norman cavalry, wiped them out. And this must have given William an idea. I have an idea. I know what I can do. I can get the men to pretend to run away, and as soon as the Saxons follow them, I will send my horses to kill them. So William used a clever tactic. It was called the feigned retreat. It should be on your sheets, or you can ask me to write it on the board for you if you would like. The feigned retreat. And this got the Saxons, some of them, like just a few every time, were tricked to come down the hill. And slowly it whittles away the Saxon army. So you talk about the feigned retreat tactic, you talk about what William did, and then you say this meant that. I've kind of given you the answer a little bit there in what I've said. What else have we got? Well, you could, and this is going to be the last one I'm going to give you, you'll have to use your sheets after this. This is a bit of a bonus one, might not even be on your sheets. Just before the battle, before the invasion in fact, William sent some men to the Pope. Now if you're not sure who the Pope is, the Pope was at the time, and still is by some people, seen as God's representative on earth. And William sent some men to go and get the Pope's support for his invasion. And what the Pope gave William was a banner something called the papal banner. And because people thought that what the Pope said is what God wanted, they would have thought, right, if I'm doing what God wants, I'm going to get to go to heaven when I die. So William was very clever in sending some people to go to the Pope to get this papal banner, to get the Pope's support before his invasion. Now what you're going to have to think of for yourself here is, how is that going to impact on William's army? Think of size, think of morale. If they've got the Pope's support in a banner before they go on their invasion. That's what you've got to think about. So there's some knowledge that you can use in your assessment, but I've left the this meant that bit to you.